Hey everyone, I'm Mike, and this is To Be Continued With. And today, we're getting into the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which is actually the second Disney Plus show from Marvel. Now, before we get things started off, I want to take this time to thank everyone who subscribed to the channel. And if you're new here, please subscribe. More importantly, hit the bell for notifications. That way, you're notified when the latest episode drops. With that being said, let's cue up the intro and get right into things. As we all know, Captain America has passed his shield down at the end of Avengers Endgame, and Anthony Mackie, who plays the Falcon, was given the honors. He actually starts off the series by giving the shield back to the US government, who's looking to place it in the Captain America exhibit at the Smithsonian. Now, before all this goes down, we get a sick aerial fight / rescue mission where the Falcon takes on Batroc the Leaper and his goon squad. Now, keep in mind that the events in this series take place after the Avengers brought everyone back who Thanos snapped away. And in that time, we find out that Bucky Barnes, who is also a man out of time, just like Steve Rogers was, is trying to atone for his crimes as the Winter Soldier. Sebastian Stan reprises his role and is still being tormented about his time being under Hydra's control. He's shut off from the world, and he's trying to get on with his life in his own way, especially after he befriends an older man named Yuri, whose son he killed on one of those Hydra missions back in the day. Sam is also trying to help out his sister with the family fishing business down in Louisiana, but not even his status as an Avenger and someone who saved the world is enough to get a bank loan to help out with the situation. We're also introduced to a group that's calling themselves the Flagsmashers. They like the world when there were less people around and are exhibiting some familiar super soldier level type strength. Sam's informed about them by his government contact, only for that conversation to be cut short by the introduction of a new Captain America, complete with the shield that Sam gave back. That's right, folks, we are introduced to John Walker. He gets an intro to the world that would make the Founding Fathers proud. Complete with an updated version of Steve's theme music, he's a celebrated and decorated All-American Army soldier. Bucky ends up confronting Sam about what's going on, and Sam really doesn't want to hear it because he wants to look into the Flagsmashers and what they're up to. So Bucky shuts up and ends up tagging along. Now they encounter the Flagsmashers and a shipment that they have, only to be joined by the new Captain America and his sidekick Lamar, aka Battlestar. Now, since all four get their asses handed to them by the souped-up Flagsmashers, they lick their wounds, exchange intel, and end up going their separate ways. Now, to some, the Flagsmashers are seen as the bad guys, but to others, they're seen as freedom fighters. But either way, Sam and Bucky are way over their heads on this situation. At this point, Bucky and Sam head to Baltimore so Bucky can introduce Sam to a man named Isaiah Bradley, who in this series, as well as in the comics, was done wrong by the US government. To Marvel Comics fans, especially those familiar with a comic titled Red, White, and Black that came out in 2003, Isaiah was experimented on by the government a year after Steve Rogers became Captain America. The difference was that just like in the comics, he was erased from the history books, and in this series, jailed for 30 years. This series is touching on sensitive topics that are at the forefront of many issues and problems that America has hidden away, but are nonetheless true. Now, after Bucky and Sam get to the root of what annoys them about each other, by having a session with Bucky's government-appointed psychiatrist, they end up turning down the help of John Walker and his partner when they propose to work together. But in a wild twist, they decide to get help from the man that broke up the Avengers and use Bucky to do it, Baron Zemo. That's right, folks, Zemo, who knows a lot about Hydra and their attempts at reproducing the super soldier serum, is in on this. After an elaborate escape, Zemo ends up joining Bucky and Sam, and he tries to push their buttons, but Sam points out that he's out of line, but he's not wrong, and they start their adventure heading to a place called Madripoor. Now, Madripoor is a landmark location with ties to many Marvel Comics characters where power players and major moves are made in the criminal underworld. Sam, posing as someone named the Smiling Tiger, and using the Winter Soldier's rep, Zemo is able to get a meeting with an underworld boss named Shelby. She provides info on a doctor who is recreating the super soldier serum and states that the power broker is on top of all these issues. Things go left for our title characters, but they get saved by Sharon Carter, who's actually been on the run since helping Cap and Sam during the events of Civil War. She informs them that Dr. Nagel, who figured out the serum, works for the power broker, and that the power broker is someone you don't want to cross or or run into. Now, Dr. Nagel has perfected the serum, and he explains his connections to the power broker, as well as telling them that he was contacted by Carly Morgenthau, the girl who's leading the Flagsmashers. He gets taken out by Zemo, who shoots him, and now, donning his comic-accurate purple mask, Zemo gets Bucky, Sam, and Sharon out of a sticky situation that he created. Now, we find out all about Carly's motivation, and John Walker ends up connecting the dots on Zemo's escape to Bucky and Sam, but another party ends up joining the mix. The Dora Milaje confront Bucky after he figures out that Ayo's been following them. He's told by her that they're after Zemo for him killing King T'Chaka of Wakanda, the Black Panther's father. Now, Ayo, who worked with Bucky on rehabilitating his Winter Soldier programming during his time in Wakanda, gives Bucky 8 hours before her and the Dora Milaje come for Zemo. At this point, John Walker and his partner Battlestar end up joining Bucky and Sam, but Sam is actually getting through to Carly by simply having a conversation with her. But John's ego turns the situation completely upside down because he barges in and flexes his muscle. Now, with Zemo almost taking down Carly and destroying most of the serum, John Walker ends up stopping him and ends up finding the last of the serum as Carly makes her escape. Now, Zemo is a realist, Sam is an optimist, and Walker is simply a pessimist with somewhat of an inferiority complex, and we see all of them converging, standing their ground on how things should be done. At this point, the Dora Milaje end up showing up, and they embarrass Walker when he tries to puff out his chest at them. Bucky is literally disarmed. Zemo ends up escaping, and Walker can't believe how easily the Dora Milaje took him down, and things begin coming to a head. The next round between the Flagsmashers comes with some serious casualties, because at this point, Lamar is killed. It sets off John Walker, and keep in mind, he has a serum running through his veins at this point, and he ends up taking out one of Carly's soldiers in public view for retaliation. And now the whole world is actually viewing the new Captain America decapitate an enemy who's already surrendered. They end up having an epic fight, both Walker with Bucky and Sam. And they end up taking Walker down, and Carly ends up escaping again, while some of her followers actually get arrested. At this point, Sam's Falcon wings are completely destroyed, and Bucky heads out to find Zemo. Walker is now placed in front of a government court, and he's stripped of his title and his duties. And things get interesting, because we're introduced to a new player in the MCU. Played by Julia Louis-Dreyfus of Seinfeld fame, we meet Valentina LaFontaine. Think of her as the counter to the role that Nick Fury plays. She basically recruits Walker, but both John nor us, the viewers, know what he's being recruited into or for. Bucky ends up locating Zemo in Sokovia, and he's taken to the raft by the Dora Milaje. And if you remember, the raft is that underwater prison that held all of Captain America's friends at the end of Civil War. Sam takes the time to visit Isaiah Bradley once again to learn more about his past and how he was treated by the US government. Sam ends up reflecting on Isaiah's life, his own family situation, and thinks of Steve, and ends up getting help from everyone around town, who Bucky even shows up to lend a hand, but also comes with a gift from Wakanda for Sam. After they spend some time bonding, Bucky and Sam move past their issues, but know that things aren't over, because Carly will eventually show up again, more dangerous than ever. We want to also let you know that a government department called the GRC, which has been the Flagsmashers' targets throughout this entire series, is setting up the location for this show's big finale, because they're about to have their biggest meeting in New York City. The Flagsmashers end up making their move, and we get Sam in his all-new hybrid Falcon and Captain America suit, and he's backed up by Bucky and Sharon, who are actually outside the building, which does him no good because the power broker has now paid Batroc the Leaper to help Carly out. Sam ends up incorporating his fighting style with the Falcon suit and the shield, which are both made from vibranium, and Sam's able to take down Batroc and then take to the sky to rescue some hostages that are in a helicopter, while Sharon and Bucky end up freeing some hostages that are placed on the ground in some vans. Now, John Walker does make a final appearance, and he confronts Carly, and every one of our main characters comes out on top when they're facing their adversaries. With everyone celebrating, Batroc actually helps Carly escape, and she gets cornered by Sharon, who in an interesting twist is revealed to be the power broker, and she's been the one moving all these pieces across the board this entire time. Sharon takes out Batroc to cover her tracks, and they're joined by Carly, but ends up getting shot herself. Sam ends up making the rescue, while John and Bucky outsmart the remaining Flagsmashers as Carly is about to take out Sam, which prompts Sharon to shoot her. As the members of the GRC are making their viewpoints to Sam, when they thank him about him and rescuing them, Sam actually shares his views on how things got out of control, and to this point. Sam actually gives a speech that would make Steve Rogers proud as hell. Now the remaining Flagsmashers are actually taken out, and Zemo gets a last laugh because his butler blows up the transport that they were in. We end up cutting to Valentina being updated on this whole situation, and we see that she's outfitted John with an updated suit, which essentially is the version from the comics of his more well-known moniker, the U.S. Agent. The series ends with Bucky finding closure with Yuri as he tells him about his son. Sam and his sister save the family business with the help of his Louisiana neighbors that now also allow Sam to tell Isaiah's story. He's actually telling the story for the world to see and for the world to understand the hero that he is, as part of the Captain America exhibit at the Smithsonian. In the after-credit scene, Sharon is pardoned by the US government and gives off some creepy vibes for what's about to come next. This show comes to an end, but not before the actual title is updated to reflect the new status quo of our main characters. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to Captain America and the Winter Soldier. This series shows us the ugly side of American history alongside the differences with society and how different people are viewed throughout the world. But it does give us a preview of what's to come next, because Disney and Marvel have already announced a fourth Captain America movie, which will obviously star Anthony Mackie and Sebastian Stan. Now, as all Marvel shows go, this was entertaining, and it had a lot of great nods to the history from the comics, as well as updated versions of some classic comic book stories. Valentina is a great add with her dry wit and humor, and it seems like with Zemo being incarcerated and Walker becoming a spin-off version to counter Captain America, it seems like this is the beginning of the formation of the Dark Avengers. And that's a team from the comics that actually started out as villains, playing the role of heroes, but taking on the hero's image. But we all know with the MCU that they're all going to put their own little spin on it and obviously keep us guessing. Now, if you've been bobbing your head to what's going on in the background, the title track is called Money Talks for my partner in crime, Bobcat the Legend. And as always, the track information, his YouTube page, and his Spotify page can be found in the description below. As always, folks, I want to say thank you again, but let me know what your thoughts are on this series, as well as your thoughts about what I'm doing here on the channel. And even though this series has come to an end, you know as well as I do that this is simply to be continued with.